Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Another day, another episode, and on a Thursday, close to a Friday. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. Chase joining us. We are fired up because NHL playoffs start Sunday. I know the play-in tournament was really interesting, but even the NBA playoffs is looking really interesting. But we got a special one tonight because we got two things we're going to break down here tonight. The NHL playoffs of who I think will hoist the Stanley Cup, and as most of you have all been waiting for, I did this last year. I'm doing it again this year. My top 10 NFL draftees. I got it ready to roll with you. But, Chase, we're so close. We're 7 days away, man, and yes, we are right there to draft night in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to it. It's exciting, and I cannot wait to see who the Browns take and – you know, how many first round trades there's going to be? Because I'm predicting 4.
I think you might be right. I think about 4 of them because there's been a lot of talks that's been happening. But you're going to love this one. That's interesting though, because it's going to make a lot of people jaws drop. I was like this about Pittsburgh, but this is interesting here. So let's talk about this. So first off, I want to basically point out what just recently happened after yesterday. So Nico Imalava that I was telling you about from the quarterback from Tennessee, it's official. He's committing to UCLA. He is. And the thing about it is like we told a lot of people, he's Polynesian. Majority of the population that goes all the way up there to California are Polynesians. Okay. And you knew that right off the bat. So to me, Nico going to UCLA, it is what it is. But I'm going to tell you this. So here's what's crazy about it. Okay. Nico, when he was at Tennessee, he was making upwards of $2 million, okay, in NIL money. And then he wanted to extend that and make it $4 million. In fact, here's the crazy part. And I'm sure Chase didn't even know about this either. But you remember the game in Columbus, Ohio, when it was the playoffs and Ohio State, they were about to play Tennessee. And boy, did they give them a whooping. Well, here's what's funny about this. Nico actually threatened the University of Tennessee to not play that night unless they got a deal done. And they threatened him. And so yet, you saw exactly with what all ended up going down. Ohio State took they gave it to Tennessee and moved on, and they did the same thing to Oregon. So as crazy as it is, Nico was basically holding out and was pushing to not play in that playoff game. Well, no coach, including Josh Heupel, likes that. Okay, and Tennessee showed their cards. They were not folding for someone like Nico, a freshman at that time. So he wanted $4 million. And the same thing kept harping at camp. And a lot of this, like I talked about with Parenting 101, because a lot of this influence was all coming from his camp, and that was mostly through his dad. Okay, the dad was pushing for Nico to want to go and get more money. For what reason? And Nico wasn't even starting up on his sophomore season yet. So we don't know what he's about, but I'd say he had a very impressive freshman year at Tennessee and had a lot of upside. Because if you think about it, the transfer portal once again is opened up, and there are a lot of names that are in that transfer portal as of right now. Okay? Penn State's already losing 2 defensive players. You've got Colorado, who's losing an edge rusher, but they ended up gaining back a wide receiver. And so Tennessee, by the way, they added up wide receivers just for Nico. But Nico wanted more money. And Tennessee wasn't going to give him that because you thought more of yourself more than the program. And that's what a lot of these coaches were teaching them. Now, the only person who disagreed and feels like Tennessee is screwed is Urban Meyer. He went on and said that. Okay, he basically broke down and was talking about, Nico's playing ability and all the rest of it. Tennessee's going to miss that. Tennessee has not had a relevant season in a long time, but yet they still managed to be middle of the pack in the SEC. But Tennessee's going to be fine. They will find their quarterback. Okay, they're not completely dead in the water. To me, personally, so Nico, he wanted $4 million, and he goes to UCLA. You know how much he's making up at UCLA now? $1.75 million. You took a pay cut to go to UCLA. And the camp was like, well, it's not about the money, but yet you harped about $4 million. So which is it? I would say Nico's very talented. But as far as maturity mindset, he's not quite there yet. That's the problem. Okay, so good luck at UCLA, because you know where you are? You're in the Big Ten. Okay, and if you thought that the SEC was the only competition you haven't even saw the end of it. Haven't you seen Ohio State win the national championship? Did you see Michigan a year ago win the Natty? Okay, did you watch Penn State and how physical that they are with Abdul Carter and Tyler Warren? Like, did you watch how James Franklin even put that all together? Hell, I don't even count out Michigan State. So you're going to be in the big pile. And here's the other thing. You're facing against USC and Lincoln Riley, okay? And he's going to have to train up his next quarterback. We talked about it earlier. When Chase and we were on here Tuesday, we were talking about this. And to me, we thought about, USC would have been the ideal fit because Lincoln Riley, he's built quarterbacks. He knows exactly what to look for. And yet he didn't go there. He went to Deshaun Foster, who I have no problems with as a head coach. But UCLA has not found their niche. They haven't. They haven't found their ideal stud. And at the same time, how is this honestly going to benefit UCLA with their recruitment, the transfer portal in the NIL? Okay. Most people, you guys all harp and think the NIL is destroying college football. It's destroying college sports. You know what? At the end of the day, the kids, the athletes, the players make the choice at the end of the day. Agents aren't there wrecking it. That's all in the player. The agents are bestowed upon, again, if Chase and I were basically, we got our LLCs, okay, we want the best agency possible because we want the viewerships, we want the exposure, and we want to make sure that we are not screwed over on a deal that could hurt us financially. Okay, don't you want that? And agents, they are going to do whatever it takes to make sure that the person they're representing gets the most bang for their buck. I don't blame the agent. The agent is doing what he's supposed to do, he or she. But it's all up to the player. But that's why Nico definitely needs a different upbringing. He does. Look, I'm not against Nico transferring to UCLA, but good luck in the Big Ten when you're facing Ohio State, Michigan, even with that young kid, Bryce Underwood. Okay? When you face them, you face Michigan State, and even if you're facing USC or Washington, good luck being a relevant program. You had one in Tennessee with Josh Heupel, where you have the SEC that's going through this complete shift. Georgia's going to be starting on a young quarterback, Gunnar Stockton. Alabama, they got a new quarterback, and the question mark is, can Kalen DeBoer rebound and get Bama to the playoffs? You got South Carolina. That's going to be a playoff team with Lenore Sellers, and they've got a very good defense. You had an opportunity there in Tennessee. And you know what? You screwed it up. You go to UCLA because you were chasing the money, when truthfully, the money was only $1.75 million. Let this be a learning curve in life. Okay? The more you harp on something that you have yet to earn, that's what you're going to get. You're going to be slapped on the wrist like that. Now, again, UCLA is going to have ticket sales because of the Polynesian population. They'll go out to the West Coast. They'll come out to watch the games. But does that translate UCLA being a relevant program? It will not. It will not. Okay, I watched this program with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I watched this program with Chip Kelly as their coach. I've watched them even with Josh Rosen. It's not moving me. Okay, UCLA hasn't even built to their standard in a very long time. But good luck with that. All right. Chase's jaw is going to literally drop when I talk about this. So I actually got something very, very spicy, and you're going to love this, okay? And I've already had several of them on this show now in the last couple months, okay? So we had, the talk about Pittsburgh, and what I said, they will not be a playoff team unless you trade away TJ Watt. And it was nuts, okay? You all looked at me sideways and thinking, what in the hell is Jay talking about? And then the Dak Prescott and the Cleveland thing was very intriguing. But now I got something new for you. And according to reports, and I've got a buddy of mine who I talked to and is very close within the New England Patriots organization. And what's happening is New England is not in a desperation mode at number 4. They're not. They want the talented player, but they're not in desperation mode. There is a source that went out, and multiple teams are talking about teams that could potentially trade up. Right? And we talked about it. We talked about maybe the Raiders would be a team to trade up. Maybe, maybe the Jets could be an interesting team to trade up. Maybe, a couple teams up on the bottom, they might be wanting to trade up. So here's a team that I would say keep your eye on if this really does happen. Because you know what's happening? The quarterback hasn't been paid yet. And that's the San Francisco 49ers. There's a source that said that the San Francisco 49ers, the GM, John Lynch, and New England Patriots' new GM had a conversation on the phone. And they were inquiring about the number 4 pick. Now, what this is, I'm assuming this is going to potentially be a first-round swap, a first-round pick next year, and potentially either a late-round pick or a player after. Maybe. But what this means is San Francisco, because of all the talent that they have around him, and time is running. Okay, you got Christian McCaffrey, you got George Kittle, you got Trent Williams on his last, on the tail end of his year before he's retired. You have Kyle Juszczyk, you have a bunch of real good players, and you lost Talanoa Hufanga, you lost Dre Greenlaw, you lost a bunch of people. Okay. And right now you're in a predicament where you're about to pay Brock Purdy $50 million. Is Brock Purdy, and I've been saying this several times, is Brock Purdy worth 50 plus? I've said it to people and I'll say it again. I'm not a Brock Purdy hater, but I'm not paying a B plus quarterback A plus money, because then you will be the Dallas Cowboys. You will be. Dak Prescott, as much of how productive Dak is, he's not worth 60 mil. We all knew that. And then at the end, what happened after the Cowboys missed the playoffs? Dak and CD, they restructured because they want a better roster. They're starting to see that. Now, again, the jury is still out on Dak. We don't know what happens during draft night, but it's still out on Dak. But the San Francisco 49ers, after that many players left, and not to mention, you got Brandon Ayuk right now on the table, and there's still trade talks. Okay. And you already have Juwan Jennings, and you already have Ricky Pearsall. You could get another receiver. There's ways to do this. So what I feel is if the New England Patriots, if they're not in desperation mode, and Mike Vrabel likes to get the best players available because of this rebuild mode with the amount of cap they have left, what happens if they traded with the San Francisco 49ers to swap at number 4, and yet somehow, some way, New England trades to trade up slightly a few more spots? And what if the San Francisco 49ers decide to draft Shedeur Sanders at 4? You guys think I'm crazy, but it's a possibility. You're not paying Brock Purdy this money yet. And at the same time, are you going to be okay with paying Brock Purdy $50 million plus? And what happens if he suffers another injury? What happens if he's not exactly the same quarterback, as he once was? Okay. And here's the other thing. Like I told it to everybody, is that you got George Kittle, you got Christian McCaffrey, you got Brandon Ayuk, and you got all these other receivers. You got talented players around you. When you took those talented players away due to injury, Brock Purdy is not a talented quarterback. And I've said this to everyone. He is another mobile Jimmy Garoppolo. Sorry to burst your bubble, San Fran, but he is. He's a product of Kyle Shanahan's system. And by the way, when was the last time Kyle Shanahan ever had a high-talented quarterback in his coaching career? And I know a lot of people are like, well, Jake, what about Matt Ryan? Well, Matt Ryan already broke into the league with Mike Smith. Okay? He already broke into the league before Kyle Shanahan got there. The only thing Shanahan had to do, pocket quarterback, and really retool his stuff. And that's where it helped to get him to the Super Bowl and an MVP. Okay. And then you look at all the other quarterbacks. You had CJ Beathard, Nick Mullins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, and Trey Lance. And all you had was 2 Super Bowl appearances, and they all looked the same. Maybe the difference is Brock Purdy is more mobile than Jimmy Garoppolo, but they're all the same. You lost to the Chiefs. And once again, you were caught in a situation where you were once leading and then you trailed again. Wouldn't you like to get over the hump? And what does Shedeur Sanders bring to the table? One, he's a pocket quarterback who can be mobile, but he has a 74% completion percentage, which is outrageous. He's highly accurate than most of these quarterbacks in the league. I know a lot of people are very attracted to Cam Ward, and I don't blame him because he has very good deep ball abilities. But Shedeur is very accurate. And Kyle Shanahan likes that stuff. But he's also capable of throwing the deep ball. Think about it. Brock Purdy is not the be-all, end-all of your franchise. If that's how you think, then good luck being the Dallas Cowboys. Okay? Dak is also not your be-all, end-all, but that doesn't mean Dak can't be productive. Brock Purdy's not the be-all, end-all of your franchise, but that doesn't mean he can't be productive either. So Shedeur Sanders, what does he bring to the table? He was the most sacked quarterback in college football, even in Colorado. But 74% completion percentage amongst all college quarterbacks, that accurate, should not go unsaid. And San Francisco, you know why you would make this move? Is because you know who's mocking you right now in the NFC West? It's not the Seahawks and it's not the Cardinals. It's Sean McVay and the LA Rams. And who did they get? Poona Ford, a great defensive tackle to sum up their defensive front. They got Devontae Adams, another wide receiver, because they want to go to the Super Bowl. At least one more, while Matthew Stafford is still there. Okay? That's who's mocking you. But yet you're Kyle Shanahan and you actually have the upper hand because you have a winning record over Sean McVay. That is the only reason you make this move. Call me crazy. I don't care. I've been to San Francisco before. Beautiful city, beautiful town. But all I'm saying is just think about it and let it sit there, Niner fans. Seriously. Would you rather just settle there and be the Dallas Cowboys with Brock Purdy? Or would you wait another year and have Brock Purdy, and then you've got Shedeur Sanders already there, drafted. You build him up to his potential, and then you'll finally have the quarterback that could get you over the top. What do you think about that, Chase? I was surprised, and I had, you know me, I had to make sure, is this a credible resource? And yes, it was with that source. But that's not crazy to think about this, because if you pay Brock Purdy $50+ million, you will be the Dallas Cowboys. You will be, because you're going to be locked with that money, and Trent Williams is going to be gone. You're now going to have to pay high premiums. George Kittle is going to be a Hall of Famer, and so is Christian McCaffrey. You're going to have to reload this thing heavily. But what you could do is you could hold on to Purdy for one more year, draft Shedeur while you trade, and at the same time, Brandon Ayuk is still out there. You can make a trade for it and trade up potentially and get a better player.
I am so sorry. I'm in Columbus right now. My window's open and I just heard a big bang.
Uh-oh.
I'm wondering if an accident.
Is that it?
Because I live right by the highway, so I'm wondering if there was an accident.
Hey, you know what? That must have been the bomb drop. You know what it is? It must have been.
Must have been Hiroshima again.
But I'm just saying, because
to me, it's hard to believe. It's hard to think that that's actually going to happen. Because, you don't get rid of all of the talented pieces that you have if they're not trying to cut cap to pay Brock Purdy.
Exactly. And this is why, because why would you settle for that? Because now you're going to be trapped. And the team that's going to be mocking you is the LA Rams. I mean, think about it. That's what this division is back and forth with. The Cardinals, nah. The Seahawks, they were good at one point. They might be rebuilding for something different, but even they're nah. But all you have is the Rams and the Niners. Okay, that's what's running that division. And Shanahan has a winning record over McVay, but McVay has a ring.
Yep.
That's a team that's mocking you.
And
that's why
Shanahan's been there 3 times and has 0.
And that's the problem. Okay. But so do you want to live with being that team that's so close, that coach that's so close, but yet he cannot get a Super Bowl? I mean, this is not outrageous to me. I feel like you hold on to Purdy for one more year.
It's far-fetched. It's too far-fetched, man.
It may seem like that, but I'm telling you, because here's the thing. What you watched Shedeur Sanders all throughout college. That screams Kyle Shanahan. Pocket presence, mobile, accurate enough because he loves that stuff. And Shedeur has a better deep ball capability than Brock Purdy. Seriously.
I mean,
Shedeur,
he does. I'm not disagreeing with that, but the Niners have too many holes to go worry about drafting a QB at the moment. I feel like if they really wanted to hold on to Brock Purdy one more year, and they really wanted to draft a QB or trade up for one and use the assets for that, they could do that in next year's draft when the draft class is going to be far much
But what
greater.
what was it that all of us harped that New England needed? Weapons. Because you have Drake May. So you're not out the window with Brandon Ayuk. This is why you drafted Ricky Pearsall. This is why Juwan Jennings right now works. So you could get more assets from there. And New England, I mean, they got assets. They do. And they've got plenty of spending money on cap. So, and Mike Vrabel is the kind that likes veteran mixed with rookies. He does. Because the more veterans that he's got, the better the build that these rookies are going to have. I mean, why do you think they went and got Harold Landry? Why do you think they went and got a lot of these guys?
Where you're coming from with all of this, but all the signs are pointing towards the Niners just rebuilding their roster and going younger rather than trying to get a quarterback. Because, like I said, there's so many holes on that roster after trading away Debo, letting Tala'ula Ufunga out the door, almost letting Fred Warner walk. Like they need corners, they need safeties. Travarius Ward's gone.
But you know what's funny is
Jahdae Barron would be the best pick for them at pick 11 right there.
But look at how many are still available in free agency. So you could make moves by the draft, post the draft, because there's those undrafted free agents, and some of them could be diamonds in the rough. And you've got
how many times does that actually work though? Not very many.
Well, you know what? Chargers GM Joe Ortiz came out and said this, that you let the board fall to you. Because you know what I mean? Because the idea is, and this is very smart, and this is the same way that Howie Roseman and multiple others have felt this way. Because if you let the board fall to you, you're not in desperation mode. New England and Mike Vrabel are instilling in that organization that they are not in desperation mode. Yes, they want the best player available. But think about this. Where do you think that they might actually go if they swap the pick with San Francisco? They could go get Will Johnson.
Well, you're losing out on so many. Well, they got Christian.
Yeah, but if you
Christian
pair
Gonzalez
up, but if you pair
them up, I agree.
Yeah,
but you're losing out on one of the most premier perennial, edge rushers in this league in Abdul Carter. That's if the Giants pass on him, because more than likely they might not. But Mason Graham. You still got Will Campbell.
Have Mason Graham. Yep.
But they need O-line help badly, tremendously badly. So,
but like I told you, because New England has the upper hand from this, because they could either take this with San Francisco, because again, why are the Giants here in Boulder? They're not there to draft Shador. I'm telling you that right now. The reason they did that is because, and even John Mara, he came out and said that we wanted to get an extra look at all of these quarterbacks before we made the decision to possibly pass. Because why would you end up signing Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston with that thought? Because if you're not in desperation right now up at quarterback, which to me personally, I don't agree with the moves that they did, because I would rather get a bridge and get a rookie, which all of us would. But they're doing this because they feel like this draft does not have their quarterback yet. Well, that's why you build that roster first.
They got Russell for 1 year and then Jameis for 2. So the goal is having Jameis be the backup for this year and be the mentor for the guy. If they get one in the later rounds, if they don't, then they're going to go and have Jameis be the starter next year to be that bridge quarterback to mentor the young guy and then have him take over. So that's why he signed for 2 rather than 1.
But this is the thing though, is what does Russell do well? Like what you watched with Doug Baldwin and you watched with Tyler Lockett. Okay, he's a go up and get it type thrower. And you know who's good at that? Jalen Hyatt. And so is Malik Neighbors. That's what Russell will be very good for. He'll put up the numbers with the receivers because you're trying to get at least that offense going. But here's the other thing. You also need another running back to pair with Tyron Tracy.
Don't sleep on them trying to pick Ashton Genty now.
I mean, but this is the thing though. Is he that perennial at 3?
I think he is. I mean, you've obviously seen what he did in college. He was 10 yards shy of breaking the record and everything. And he's been known to be a workhorse back, and you've seen him be the workhorse.
What number did Zeke go? Was it 8th in that draft class? Yeah. So here's the thing.
Even if you're
but Saquon, the thing about it is Saquon was very perennial, and you saw that for a fact. That's why the Giants are literally kind of kicking themselves, because they let that best employee out of the building. That's why Philly was able to get a Super Bowl, because once you got that perennial player smacking you in the face, that's it. Now listen, the thing about running backs is that if you're on from the tiers of 4 to possibly 8 or 9, that's maybe the best place you want to be at. Think about it. LaDainian Tomlinson was 5th. Okay, and think about that. The Chargers could have been in a position where they could have drafted Michael Vick, but they didn't. And instead, they went and got the perennial player at TCU named LaDainian Tomlinson at 5. Okay, 3 is almost a risk reward type of spot. You don't know if Ashton Ginty, because here's the thing. You don't know if Ashton Ginty, if you plug him into this Giants offensive line, which is so atrocious, you don't know if he's honestly going to be that. I would rather, because I want to go.
Boise State line wasn't that good.
Well, but the difference is like Boise State, they knew they were going to be tested by Penn State. Let's be honest from there. If you're playing, but here's the thing though, that don't take it away from what they did against Oregon. Yeah, they lost, but they played very well.
Put up 127 yards against Oregon.
That's what I'm saying, man, because Oregon, even though it was their first year in the Big Ten, they looked like a Pac-12 team again. Okay, that's what they were. But again, I just think it's way too rich. I think if you're there at the 4 through the 9 spots, that's perfect. That's perfect. Because here's the thing. You know what those spots have? Offensive line. They have a very good coach that knows how to work in the trenches. There's a couple teams like that. Pete Carroll is one of them. I'm telling you, the Raiders and Ashton Ginty would feed families.
I feel like I feel like you're going to see the Bears try to trade up to number 5.
The Bears could too.
They could trade up to 5 because I know that Ben Johnson wants running back.
But this is exactly my predicament, Chase. Think about it. These are the coaches. These are the teams that worked their offensive line. The Giants didn't even work their offensive line outside of Andrew Thomas. So what makes you think that would work? Because then it would be Saquon 2.0 all over again. You really think John Mara is going to honestly go through that again?
But Saquon was even good with a terrible O-line.
All I'm saying is that you would want to fix the O-line because that was the benefit of going to Philly. Philly had a better O-line than the Giants. The Giants, like I said, I still stand on them taking Travis Hunter. I really do. Because at least
Travis Hunter's going number 2 to the Cleveland. So
well, hey, if Cleveland goes against another receiver and corner, that's fine. But I mean, to me, you've heard me say about it. I think Cleveland's got other needs. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, if you're lucky enough, they got some other needs.
Defensive tackle is definitely a need. I will agree, but you know, if you get Travis Hunter, that fills 2 needs right there.
I just look at the fit and the scheme of things. That's why our mock draft next week is going to be freaking outrageous. I really do.
I want Shedeur or you know somebody like that, but like I know that they're not going to pick him number 2 overall, and then.
But this is why this is happening, because those top spots, they are baiting the teams to trade up to get more draft capital so that they could go into other spots and get other needs. That's part of the reasoning of business. Andrew Berry, I hope Joe Shane knows what the hell he's doing. But there are teams that could literally be doing this. They're trying to bait for other teams because you want to know why. They want more second rounds than anything. That is your home run ball, is the second rounds. Yes, you've got first round talents. They're going to obviously play by day 1, but it's the second round steals they want because they're loaded. They're loaded on day 2.
I mean that, or maybe they want to use them to trade into the first round. Because, like, honestly,
they could.
If you were a GM, would you take 2 second-round picks or 1 first-round pick?
To me, I would take 2 seconds in this draft. Abso-freaking-lutely. Because here's the thing: why would I want to gamble on 1 first-round pick who may potentially become a bust? You know what I mean? If I got 2 second-rounders. That gives me a receiver and a defensive tackle, or maybe an offensive lineman, or a running back.
Yeah, because like if Cleveland trades back, let's say they trade.
I get a double whammy with play.
Let's say Cleveland trades back to the Bears at pick 10. Well, now you got to readjust your board. You got to figure out who's available. You could go get Shedeur, and then you got like let's say the Bears give up 1. They got 2 second rounders. Let's say they give up both of those second rounders. Now you got 3. You got pick 33, pick 39, and pick 41.
Yep, but this is precisely the reason why that I said that this would make too much sense in all of that. That's why when you look at a lot of these GMs and they are not desperate with any of that. I mean, this is what they do. This is what smart GMs do. But I'm telling you, I think it's going to be really interesting. But it's loaded, man. It is seriously loaded. So I cannot wait for it.
I agree.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. The NHL playoffs, the bracket that I have up over here, that'll be on the bottom half. And then, but after this break, you're going to see my top 10 draftees. And it's so tough because it's so loaded like this. It is.
I spent like over an hour and a half trying to come up with my list.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it is. It's so tough because it's so loaded like this. It's so tough for me to even evaluate all of these players. Well, we know that the NFL draft is right around the corner in 7 days, folks, and we're so excited about it. We got the NHL playoffs, and we got the NBA playoffs after the play-in tournament. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here on the show. But BetUS, and we got so much going on. And I did it Easter Sunday. There's so much happening. Playoffs start from there. I think there's also a couple of events that's also happening as well. So get on top of it with BetUS, because BetUS, they are ready and getting geared up for the NFL draft. And by the way, prop bets are already live and out. Who is going number 1 overall? Who's trading? How many trades are there going to be? There's a lot of things that's going to happen here in this draft night. You want to get on top of it with BetUS, with all of their prop bets. They're award-winning sports book of over 30 years and counting, and also their casino entertainment. When you sign up, you get your very own account manager to give you the best of what BetUS has to offer for you. So get yourself geared up and get on the edge of your game with BetUS. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or seek therapy in your respective states and wherever you are eligible to play. Must be 21 and over, because BetUS doesn't want you to gamble irresponsibly. So check out BetUS.com for yourself and let them know Jake the Snake and Chase sent you. BetUS.com. BetUS, where the game and the NFL draft begins.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket, and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com, and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Man, I am so excited for the NFL draft, as all of you should be as well. So I do this every year. Last year, I did my top 10 NFL draftees, and last year I hit at least 7 of the 10. And so I really thought Rome Odunze, truthfully, was going to pan out, but unfortunately, Chicago's offense, they weren't big on it. So then there was also Jalen Wright that I also had. I nearly was like 50-50 when it came to Joe Milton, because I knew Joe Milton was going to be highly talented. Then there was also J.J. McCarthy. I still stand by that. I know he had the injury to him, but I still stand. He's going to be a very talented quarterback for the future. And by the way, I was very happy when Aluf Ashanu popped, because the Jets, they got themselves a very good offensive line. So this is Chase this is the first time that he's going to be witnessing this. So I do this every year. So this year I had to think very, very deep down on this draft class, and there is a lot. There is a lot from there. So this is going to be very interesting, but I put a lot of thought into it. And the top 10 draftees, music commencing now. This is my top 10.
Number 10.
So my number 10 player from here is the wide receiver from San Jose State, Nick Nash. So here's what's crazy about this, okay? So he is the polar opposite of Ryan Tannehill. If you remember Tannehill at Texas A&M, he was a wide receiver before he became a quarterback. Whereas Nick Nash spent 3 years as a quarterback, and you know how many numbers that he put up this year? He was first in catches. He was first in receiving yards, and he was second in receiving touchdowns. He had 14. Nick Nash has such great hands, and what makes him so interesting and so great to watch is that he knows what quarterbacks like. He also reads what the quarterbacks are thinking about. That's why I think Nick Nash is going to have a little of an upbringing like a Cooper Kupp type, where not a lot of people have read into this kid at San Jose State. But I think this kid is going to do a lot of wonders in the league. I have him there up at 10.
Number 9.
It's got to be Jason Taylor's kid, Mason Taylor. So to me personally, I've watched this kid video and film at LSU. And LSU, I widely respect their program, especially up at offense. But Mason Taylor, what's different than what it was when they had Thaddeus Moss? He's physical. He's capable of going up and getting it as a red zone tight end. And here's the thing. You know, he's the kind that can block. So I think as a third-round steal for any team that goes and they need a tight end and they're not desperate for it, but they love an option at tight end, if they cannot get one in the first 2 rounds, Mason Taylor, if available, I would love to watch his gameplay. I think he has a much higher ceiling as an LSU tight end than what Thaddeus Moss had when he broke into the league in 2020 with Joe Burrow. I will take Mason Taylor there at 9.
Number 8.
Some people are skeptical about him. I'm not, and that's Shedeur Sanders. How could you not love the build that he has? Okay, listen. Many people's knocks is that he holds onto the ball for too long. Well, he had a 74% completion percentage in college, and he was the most sacked quarterback in college. Okay, say what you will. If you know what's funny, even Joel Klatt ended up coming up because his number and Travis Hunter's number is going to be retired. I think it's a little bit premature, in my opinion, a little bit. I understand Travis Hunter because he's a Heisman Trophy winner and he's very, very good. But Shedeur Sanders, if you did not have that last name on the back of Shedeur, you would never know who this kid is in Colorado. You wouldn't. But I still think there's an underdog story of Shedeur Sanders. Just because that he's the son of Deion Sanders does not mean that he does not have some type of upside in this draft class. I know there's a little bit of his game he has to fix up, but I'll take him there at number 8.
Number 7.
Number 7 to me, and again, I love how loaded this draft class is at D-line. I'm going to take Kenneth Grant at number 7 because I do think he's a run stuffer. I also do think he brings a lot of physicality against opposing offensive linemen. And Michigan's D-line was outrageous. It was really good. Even with Mason Graham paired up next to him, Kenneth Grant was the kind that gets after most of these players. So there's a couple teams that I know could look for D-line. The Chargers could look for a D-line. The Cleveland Browns could potentially go down to get a D-line. So they're not in the desperation mode. But this is probably the best talented available defensive lineman. If after Mason Graham and after, a couple of edge rushers, you may look at Kenneth Grant. And I think if you're trying to get a run stopper from there, Kenneth Grant would be my answer at number 7.
Number 6.
Number 6, I don't understand why people are literally dogging on this kid, but Will Campbell at LSU. People are saying that because he's got small hands. Well, then how in the hell did he have such a great run and pass protection rate at LSU amongst offensive linemen? Okay, I know a lot of you are all banked up on that Texas offensive lineman, Kelvin Banks, but Will Campbell, I'm telling you, his elusiveness, and not to mention just his protection scheme for both the run and the pass are really, really good. That's why Garrett Nussmeier, I think next year, Garrett Nussmeier is going to be a top quarterback in the NFL draft next year. But this is why that he was getting a lot of those open looks, especially when you were throwing into a lot of offensive weapons. So I think Will Campbell, if you send him to a team that needs a left tackle, even if you get, like I said, if the Dolphins somehow, some way get Will Campbell, that is a treat in itself because you lost Teron Armstead. And there are a couple of teams that could be used that could need a tackle. I think Will Campbell, I like it where he is right here up at number 6.
Number 5.
5 to me is going to be the Texas wide receiver, Matthew Golden. I absolutely love this kid's hands. I watched his highlight tapes at Houston before he went into the transfer portal and Texas picked him up. This kid can play both on open and contested routes. And he has the hands to literally go up and fight one-on-one and haul those in. If you don't believe that, go back and watch that Arizona State playoff game. You notice how many times Matthew Golden was harassed up there on one-on-ones, but yet somehow, some way, Matthew Golden had the hands to haul it in. He's so good at what he does. And I think, like I said, I think this is a very rich prospect right here that I would love for any team that is looking to bolster up their offensive weapons, because I know T-Mac with Tedero McMillan and several others that are going to be going. But Matthew Golden is as real as it gets. I put him there at 5.
Number 4.
Here's the thing. How could you not love the story of Ashton Jeanty at Boise State and a program that is very much built a lot of really good running backs? Doug Martin, Jeremy McNichols, Jay Ajayi, Alexander Madison, Ashton Jeanty. By the way, if you've heard his story, it's unbelievable to me. He's not even from the States. He was actually from Europe. So an international player to come into the States and go to Boise State, which is very physical of a program than anything else in a small town, that is arguably impressive. Now, again, he was tested by Penn State, but think about some of the teams. Like if Chicago was to go and get Ashton Jeanty, he'd have to deal with Green Bay twice, Detroit twice, and Minnesota twice. All physical teams in the North. He'd have to deal with all of that. But if you go to the Raiders, you might actually have a little bit of a chance because your Kansas City's their Midwest. The Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, they love physicality. They love that grit and grind trench warfare. But I think it would be honestly ideal. And I would love to watch what this kid does here in 2025.
Number 3.
Number 3 to me, I absolutely love this kid, and it's Colston Loveland in Michigan. I think this kid is very talented, offensive driven, another one that is also capable of giving you some blocks. But this is a guy who has such an interesting route tree. He really does. And a gamer, which is why that last year I had back-to-back receivers in my top 10 NFL draftees. That was Malik Neighbors and that was Rome Odunze. Obviously, Odunze did not pan out, but Malik Neighbors definitely did. This is the year that the tight ends are blooming and blossoming, because if you watch Brock Bowers do what he did with the Raiders out of Georgia as the number one prospected tight end in the country, just imagine what Colston Loveland would do, and imagine what this next tight end would do.
Number 2.
Bet your ass that I'm going to go with that Penn State tight end, Tyler Warren, at number 2. Because to me, physical, obviously can make his own route tree, and he's capable. He's got a burst to him. That's why he's highly the tight end that the Jets, the Colts, and multiple others would love to have on this roster. So Tyler Warren, to me, is exactly the premier tight end, much like Brock Bowers, that I think could give you at least that. I think Brock kind of gives you a little bit more than what Tyler Warren does, but this is about as good as it gets when you need a tight end prospect that's going to give you a lot more than you asked for.
Number 1.
Took a little bit of time figuring out my number 1 draft prospect, and that there is Abdul Carter. I know Trace is looking at me like, where's Cam Ward? I know what Cam Ward is. I'm not banging on him. But look, when I talk about athlete and I talk about juice and I talk about somebody who could be a perennial player, I mean, did you watch LeVar Arrington? Did you watch Micah Parsons? Did you watch a lot of these edge rushers out of Penn State? They know how to build these edge rushers at Penn State. And Penn State is very physical. So that's why I think Abdul Carter, and I know a lot of people were kind of scared a little bit about the injury, but that's not changing his draft stock. It's not. Because this kid, by the time he hits the field, gives you added juice on defense. As a youngster that you could literally deal with 4, possibly 5 years of that contract and not be disappointed. You won't be, because this is a guy that's going to get after the quarterback. He's going to give you some pressures on the opposite side. Abdul Carter, I think, is honestly the real deal with me. He's my number 1 prospect here in this draft class. So there you go. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Look, So last year, the ones that missed was Jalen Wright at number 10. I am very high on Nick Nash, that I think he'll be a hit. I think the other one, I think Laiatu Latu didn't have too bad of a season, but he wasn't quite to the expectation I was hoping for when he went to the Colts. And then there was Rome Odunze at 2.
I think Laiatu Latu was picked way too high.
And that's the thing. That's why I was hoping it would have panned out differently, but it wasn't to the expectation I was hoping for. That was a little the disappointment. Then there was Rome Odunze, but I don't hold that on Rome because Chicago needed to fix that offense anyway, right? So the only one that I think was a 50-50 mark was the 6th spot, and that was where Joe Milton was. So this year, I have Nick Nash at 10, Mason Taylor at 9, Shedeur at 8, Kenneth Grant at 7, Will Campbell at 6. I don't care what anybody says about his hand size or what exactly his reach is. That kid's protection is really good. Matthew Golden at 5, Ashton Jitty at 4, and I did the same thing I did last year with the wide receivers where they were back-to-back, only this time I did tight ends with Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren, and then I got Abdul Carter. I mean, you can't go wrong with that, with the best collegiate athlete. That's why I'm like, Abdul screams volumes for me.
Yeah, I mean, you got a different list than I did, so it's completely like, I think I've got maybe one guy on here that is the same. Everybody else is like completely different.
Oh, so, boy. Who was the one you had?
The one I have is Shedeur.
Okay. So at least you and I are on the same page there, because I don't understand why people think he's going to flunk in the first round. Like, how?
Like, he's shown enough to where he's warranted a first-round pick.
Oh, of course.
Like, I mean, you cannot sit here and tell me that a quarterback that has the 74% completion percentage, the worst offensive line in the league, and one offensive weapon or offensive playmaker in Travis Hunter,
and yet turn this program around to where they have a winning record and they got a bowl game appearance.
I know everybody was dogging on why get your jersey retired when you didn't even make a bowl game, you didn't even make the playoffs, you didn't even, have a chance or anything? And blah,
Well,
blah,
here's
blah.
what's crazy. This was the last time you ever had a talented quarterback out of the college, out of University of Colorado, was Cordell Stewart. Think about how crazy that is. Like, to that stature, because we watched him in college. He moved around. He was mobile. He was somebody that had an arm. I'd say he was more of the IKEA version of Randall Cunningham, in my opinion, because Randall was more accurate, but at least Cordell Stewart gave you some games to win. Like, that's why Pittsburgh kind of valued that. It was kind of off and on a little bit, and then they went with Tommy Maddox, and then they were like, oh, dear God, this is horrible, until Big Ben landed in their lap.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. So Shedeur, it was probably the best thing that could ever happen with this program. Same with Travis Hunter. It allowed them to now officially be on the map. Do I think Shedeur should have his number retired? I would have given it 5 years until then. Travis Hunter's understandable because he's a Heisman Trophy winner. He's arguably one of the most perennial athletes that you would see play corner and wide receiver. So I can understand that portion. But as far as Sanders, it's like you kind of just slap him a little bit up on the wrist. But I like the underdog story he will potentially bring with the NFL. I really do.
I mean, I do too. I like how, a lot of people are overlooking him. And if he falls out of the top 10, it's going to be a good wake-up call for a lot of people to realize, like,
oh, yeah. Like, look, this is not, like, look, this is way far from Will Levis. And they were talking about Shedeur. Well, he holds on to the ball for too long. Yeah, but so does Will Levis. And how'd that work out? He's got no confidence.
And Rodgers holds on to the ball too long, and look how well he turned out.
Yeah, exactly. And Aaron Rodgers has such
MVP,
a finesse touch to the ball.
Like,
yeah, he has such a finesse touch to the ball. That's why it's so effortless. Nobody could ever recreate, procreate a type of talent like that. Even Jordan Palmer, in his camps, he'll tell you that right to your face. You will never have another build like Aaron Rodgers. You can have all these quarterbacks that you can comp and build, but not him. Yeah. So I think Shedeur is capable of succeeding in this league. I really do. But I think so too. But that's why I think, and it made perfect sense if you are the San Francisco 49ers and you're not sold on Purdy, paying him $50 million, then Shedeur, pocket quarterback, very good pocket awareness, which is what Kyle Shanahan likes. And he likes accuracy. And honestly, Shedeur, I think, has a better touch of the football than Brock Purdy does. So you can finally have that quarterback if you're Kyle Shanahan. You can finally have him. And he's capable because he has the pocket awareness. He does. And he's also mobile. But at least we know, because if you think about it, the schemes are not that far away. Because if you think about it, Kyle Shanahan kind of runs a little bit of the same schemes that Colorado does.
Yeah.
So it would work. So that's why I'm like, and for any of these teams that could be potentially looking at quarterback, it could be interesting. So again, I would never leave that off the table. But this is the other thing too. And you've heard about the news about this, because this is why, putting up Abdul Carter, and you want to know why, is because I'm hearing a lot of it, and you can't say, I didn't tell you. But things are not looking good between Pittsburgh and TJ Watt. What are you going to do there? You know what I mean?
Is there a chance that Pittsburgh trades up in the first round to draft an Abdul Carter so that way they can reset that, reset that contract and give the Giants?
And you're going to put your money there on offense? Yeah. And look, you could take Jackson Dart. You could take Kyle McCord later on in the rounds. But fix that.
Jackson Dart won't be there. He'll be picked by Cleveland at pick 33.
Well, but any one of those, you can fix your offensive line, you can fix your run game, because you're going to need to fill in that hole that you left with Najee Harris now with the Chargers. So it something has to give for Pittsburgh, because being just a defensive team, but yet you're getting blown out by Buffalo, and you're like, again, like, that's why I still stand this, that New England is a playoff team before Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh's going to have to come to this predicament. If you pay TJ Watt, you got to pay DK. You got to pay him. You got to pay this. You're going to be stuck. And then you won't even have exactly that quarterback that you know that you want. You should have figured this thing out 5 years ago with Big Ben, but you didn't. So that's why, like, this is your opportunity to now make this up.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get into my draftees list. We've got number 10, a guy that is like has been under the radar and kind of picked up his draft stock a little bit since the combine and the Senior Bowl, because nobody thought of this guy as a first round pick, but now he's a borderline first round talent. And I've being from that area and graduating from there, that is Darius Alexander from the University of Toledo, the defensive tackle. He is the number 10 spot. He is not only a run stuffer, but he is also a good, rusher of, the quarterback. He reminds me of a great value Quentin Williams because
he's very good.
Yeah, because Quentin Williams is like an all-around, top 5 defensive tackle in the league.
Yep.
Like Darius Alexander has the potential to be that if he has the right coaching and gets in the right scheme for him.
If I didn't choose Nick Nash, I would have honestly have thought of Siobhan Ravel from East Carolina.
Ravel is another good one, yeah.
I think he's a very good, because I think, like I said, keep your eyes on the Raiders because they love that. Like Tariq Woolen and Devin Witherspoon, I think Pete Carroll will be all over him if he's available.
Yeah, I totally agree. My number 9 spot's going to a guy that has kind of gotten a lot of draft hype over the past, I'd say month because of Good Morning Football. But before that, you really didn't hear about this guy. You thought of him as a, late 3rd, early 4th round pick, but now he's being mocked into the late 1st, early 2nd rounder. And that's Carson Schweschinger, the linebacker.
Yes, I've actually heard a lot about this kid. Yeah, he's very, very talented.
Very talented. He reminds me again of a great value Luke Kuechly. He reminds me of a guy who can play sideline to sideline, but can also read the offenses very well.
He's a great tackler up and on the outsides, and then he's also somebody who's also a very good field general. He could read opposing offenses.
He can
very good,
and he can jump the routes of players. He can tell you, hey, it's going to be a run up the middle, and he could stop it right there. Carson Schweschinger is going to be a good linebacker in this league, especially if he gets to a good defensive system. I could see him thriving well with the Washington Commanders.
I agree with that. They need a linebacker, and they've needed somebody that's perennial because last few years
Bobby Wagner is he's good, but he's out of his prime.
Well, and you know what? You have a perfect mentor with Bobby Wagner. So at that point, it's like even what I said when it came to Junior Colson when he got taken to the Chargers, because you have Denzel Perryman, you have a linebacker, and with Diane Hanley, so you are a part of that committee. So your bill, and by the way, that was a Navarro Bowman pick. So and he's played alongside Patrick Willis, so he knows exactly where to find that. So with Washington and Bobby Wagner, that's a pretty sexy pick. I like that.
I mean, if they pick him in the 2nd round, that'd be a steal for them.
Watch yourselves.
Watch yourselves, especially if they choose the next guy that I'm going to say in the late 1st round, because they were predicting 3, but this guy could potentially be the 4th guy that is selected in the 1st round late, and that is Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss.
Yeah, Trey Amos. Yeah,
he is been a very underrated corner, but after going back and watching his film, I did not know a whole lot about him. I did not know how his game was. But going back and watching the film, you could definitely see that this guy is a great ball hawking corner. Yeah. He knows how to, deflect the passes, and he knows how to read the DBs or the offensive playmakers very well. And he could jump on the ball quickly. He can go up and make a play, and he can tackle really well too. And for DBs, that's few and far between. So if you pair Trey Amos and Carson Schweschinger with the Commanders, their secondary just got a whole lot better.
Well, what's funny is we watched Tarheeb Still be a 5th rounder and seen what he's been about. And very, very good of a steal. So, another one with Trey Amos.
Yeah, because they're projecting, Travis Hunter, Will Johnson, and Jahade Barron all to be the 1st round corners. Trey Amos could be the 4th one off the board over Siobhan Ravel and Benjamin Morrison, just because of their injuries and everything. And it's going to be great. Now, I bet you're wondering, where the hell are the offensive guys? Well, at number 6, we have got Harold Fannin Jr. Harold
Yeah,
Fannin Jr.
Harold
from
Fannin.
Bowling Green State University had the best year that we've seen from a tight end in quite a long time. And, everybody's just like, oh, well, he's playing, small competition. He put up 130 yards against Penn State when they played him.
Yep.
Like, you want to say, oh, against
Remember that game. Yeah. They had
against
no
crappy
answer.
competition, they played Penn State and he performed well. Like,
they had zero answers against him that game.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Harold Fannin is a 6'4" monster and can catch very, very well. Great contested catcher. He's not afraid to go up after the ball, and he also has great hands. I think his drop rate was a .38, which is dropping 4 passes on the season.
So I could see a team because my deal with Harold Fannin is he's a very good possession tight end. I'm questioning about his blocking, his blocking scheme. Now, if he goes to a team that might help him with that, but I think he would. I could see
the Rams. He'd be a good fit for the Rams.
I could kind of see the Eagles kind of be in that mix too, because with the Dallas Goedert thing kind of heating up, that's another one that I'm sure could be complimentary to Jalen Hurts.
The Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, dear God, yeah.
With Travis Kelce leaving?
Yeah,
Woo.
yeah. And even if you could still have a Noah Gray. And even if you get, someone like that, oh, God, yeah. That would – Kansas City would be just – they would still stick around for another 5 years. Oh, God.
My number 5 spot, I'm going with Shedeur Sanders. Again, you're talking about a guy who's getting so much hate for no reason and has I was a guy that was not a believer in Shedeur at first. Not at all. I did not like him. I did not like
I don't think anybody
the idea of drafting him, but then going back and watching the film and breaking down how he played and seeing everything he had to deal with. He's Deion Sanders' son, but he does well at reading the defenses. He's a great decision maker. He does not make so many mistakes. He had 7 interceptions, which in the NFL, if you have 7 interceptions, that's a pretty good season.
I highly agree. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Shedeur Sanders, again, even if I do not have Cam Ward in my top 10, it doesn't mean that I do not know what he is. I don't even have Mason Graham in my top 10. It doesn't mean I don't know, what they are. I know what they are. They're highly talented players. So I do not even have a question with either of them. But if I'm talking about draftees that I truthfully like, as far as their build, their where they are mentally, and kind of what the adjustment, because you want one that's coachable too. That's why I'm it'll work. I like it. That's why I'm I'm so glad you and I see eye with the Shedeur thing.
Yeah. I totally if we could get Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, I would absolutely love that.
That is a possibility too. They were talking about that as well.
They have talked about possibly trading back into the first round if he falls to 14 or 15, trading up with the Falcons and stuff. I can definitely see that happening, and it would be something to be proud of, and I would love it.
Yeah,
but my number 4 selection, I'm going to go with a guy that has been, he's been mocked to the first round, but everybody thought about him as their top, as the top of his position until the injury happened, and that's Josh Simmons.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Yeah.
Josh Simmons was ranked as arguably the best left tackle in all of college football.
Yeah.
And even going into this draft until he tore his ACL. And now everybody's looking at him he's going to fall out.
Has he lost a step? Does he not have the same jump as he wants? Yeah, because Josh Simmons, before that happened, he was a freak of nature. Yeah. You watched with what Joe Alt was capable of and a couple of them, and Josh Simmons was another one. So, and with that torn ACL, it was too bad that it literally went like that. But yes, if he rehabs it well enough where he still has the jump and burst, then he does stand a chance.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have him mocked late in the first, maybe to the Texans, maybe to the Chiefs or something, and they have him dropping. I'm like, guys, this dude is still a monster. If he can, come back healthy and perform, you've got arguably the best left tackle in this draft class, and the face of your franchise for the next 10 years at that position.
Well, here's the thing. you'd be a smart team if you have plenty of depth and you pick up a guy like Josh Simmons, that you will benefit in the 2-3 years that he's there. Because if you already built plenty of depth and you're now taking him to get him prepared for that, he won't have to feel so overwhelmed. That's the nice part.
Now, next, I may be a fan of this team, and I chose this guy not because I'm a fan of this team, but because I have gone back and looked at Gruden's QB camp, been looking at the pro days, the combine, everything of this guy, and that is Will Howard at my number 3 spot. He is a shocking pick because, I was not a fan of really high on the idea of okay, if you get picked in the 4th round, that's a pretty good spot. But I'm kind of, heating up to the idea of him being an early or late 2nd, maybe early 3rd round pick and everything. And from the way that he's talking, because there was an interview that was leaked of him talking to an NFL GM and, their scouting department, what sets you apart from everybody else? And just the way that he was, his demeanor and everything. And they had told him a play at the very first 2 minutes of the meeting. And then the meeting lasted 33 minutes. And at the last thing that they asked, hey, what was that play that we, asked you? And he cited it back word for word, play by play, step by step, every motion, every pitch, every which way, did it perfectly. And he's got the good build of a prototypical style quarterback at 6'4", 230 pounds. I'm starting to like this guy more and more in terms of how he is. So yeah, my number 2 spot, it's a heavy class for these guys, but this guy has gone under the radar for many times. Maybe it's because it's such a deep class for these guys. Maybe it's because you got other ones at the top of the draft that you're looking at okay, this guy could be a difference maker. But nobody's really talking about how good Dylan Sampson really is.
Do you know what? Dylan Sampson to me is one I've always have kept my eye on because of how elusive he was. I didn't want to make the mistake though because of obviously what I did with Jalen Wright. But that doesn't mean Dylan Sampson is a totally different build than Jalen Wright.
Yeah.
Because he's much more elusive, but he's also built for the physical trench game. That's why I think he very much would be a very good steal. Between him and Devin Neal and potentially too, the Caleb Johnson.
Yeah. I'm seeing guys like Judkins, Henderson, Johnson all picked over this guy, and they're having Dylan Sampson fall to the 4th and 5th round. I'm this guy is good.
Yeah, that's insane.
This guy's good enough to go in the 2nd round. That's how good and talented he really is. He had 1,380 yards and only played in I think 10 games last year.
Yeah, no, he was that impactful on that ground game.
Oh my gosh,
that's why when everybody talked about losing Nico, they're going to be screwed. Yeah, well then, how in the hell did Dylan Sampson literally work that out?
Yeah,
you didn't have Dylan Sampson, Tennessee screwed.
Yeah,
okay. It don't matter if you have Nico.
Was a perennial piece to that offense, and why it clicked so well because there was a lot of games that Nico did not do a damn.
No. That game, even against, what was it, Alabama, he overthrew receivers. So if you did not have your run, because that's the one thing, run games help simplify your offense because that allows for play action types for you to now pass the ball, or you're going to hand that off and Dylan Sampson's going to basically be your bell cow and start that up.
Yeah, that's why I picked him at my 2 spot because so many people are overlooking this guy and they're mocking him in the 4th or 5th rounds. I'm dude, no.
I
don't
literally
overlook this guy.
I scoffed when I saw that list. I was are you kidding me? How in the world could you even think that Dylan Sampson is going to go that route? There's no way.
Yeah. People are I do my mock drafts on TikTok and people are
because outside of Ashton Ginty,
Dylan Sampson's going to go that high because I think I had him for one team. I had him picked in the early 3rd round. And they're you really think Dylan Sampson's worth drafting that high? I'm yes, absolutely.
Because outside of Ginty and Omarion Hampton, you now have your slate of running backs right there, including Dylan Sampson. So I don't get that. I never understood why did they even lowball them like that.
Yeah. And then my number one guy is obviously Cam Ward. You know,
Yep.
I know that he's going
you're
excited.
overall.
I know he's going number one overall, but like you got a lot of people that are still like, you know, not sold on this guy. And they're like, oh, well, you know, he's just going to be like a Will Levis 2.0 and blah, blah, blah. No, like after seeing like what he has said in his press conferences, what he has said when he's training, and like the demeanor that this kid shows, the confidence that he eludes, and not to mention his play on the field, Miami Hurricanes would have won 1 or 2 games this year had it not been for Cam Ward. That defense was atrocious.
Defense was awful.
That offense revolved around him. They lost to Syracuse, but they put up 38 points, and Cam Ward put up 330 yards and 3 TDs in that game. And they lost because their defense could not stop a cold.
Yeah,
it is
Cam Ward so awful.
Makes a big difference. And I have seen this guy throw 2 picks back-to-back drives on offense. And then I have seen him come out the very next drive after that and make it happen. I've seen this guy with a 4th and 17 come out and get a 4th and 19 and get a first down to win the game.
Yeah.
Like this dude is the real deal. And the Titans, if they do this right, he will be a good quarterback for him.
Oh, there you go. Then this is your niche, Chase. This is what we talked about, was because this is your scouting niche. So that's pretty impressive. I like it. By the way, some interesting news that just popped up. I don't know if you saw it, but the Saints have a lot to think about with their pick now, because right tackle Ryan Ramczyk is retiring after 7 seasons. Wow. They're losing their right tackle. So Derek Carr goes down and you're losing your right tackle. This is not good, Chase. And I'm telling you, the Saints have a lot to think about with that pick.
On the bright side, at least it frees up cap.
Oh, God. Yeah. I don't know. Well, I love this every year. Chase knows this as myself as a hockey maniac. But the Stanley Cup playoffs start Sunday. We already have the slates right now. So who's in? So on the West, you have the Winnipeg Jets. Yep, I've got the bracket up in front of me.
Can you pull it up on the big screen? Because I want to see it too.
Oh, yeah, of course. So I'm just going to let them know what the teams were.
Gotcha.
So these teams were, so you got the Winnipeg Jets against the St. Louis Blues. You got the Dallas Stars against the Colorado Avalanche, the Vegas Golden Knights against Minnesota Wild, and then there's the LA Kings against the Edmonton Oilers. On the East, you have the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Ottawa Senators, so it's the battle for Ontario. Tampa Bay Lightning against the Florida Panthers. That's always a fun matchup. Washington Capitals against the Montreal Canadiens after all these years. The Carolina Hurricanes against the New Jersey Devils. So here we go. We're going to pull this up. And
I don't know much about hockey, but I'm down to predict this. So
well, I'm telling you right now. So I got my music. So let's start off in the Western Conference. So you got the Winnipeg Jets. Here's what's hard about this. Because if you're the Winnipeg Jets, you're a President's Day trophy winner, you cannot afford to screw up the first round like you did last year. Because Connor Hellebuck was a Vezina Trophy winner, and you know how many goals he gave up in their first round exit? 24. As a Vezina Trophy winner, that's unacceptable. You cannot give up that many goals in a first round. That's sloppy hockey. So I think Winnipeg and Rick Bowness, they corrected their wrongs, and I really am better. I feel better about Winnipeg this year than what happened last year. I mean, last year was sickening. So against the St. Louis Blues, now don't count them out. I think they're going to make it a hell of a game. I've got the Jets in 6. And they move on to the round 2 because Jordan Binnington is a very good goaltender, and he's going to be at a point. When you watch playoff Binnington, they're going to give you some fits. So I'll take the Jets to win in 6 games against the St. Louis Blues. Now, this is my favorite matchup in the Western Conference. The Dallas Stars against the Colorado Avalanche. The Avs giving it to Mikko Rantanen. and their face off against the Stars. This is a 7-game series for me because I watched this team go back and forth. Jake Ottinger is very, very good. I also watched Scott Wedgwood in person against the Golden Knights, and even he's a solid goaltender, but they have opportunities to kind of swap back and forth. These are better goaltenders because in the end, when you watched Alexander Georgiev, it was bad. And the thing of it is, they won a cup with Darcy Kemper. And so Colorado has serviceable guys. They did the right thing. They were not going to be stuck with a contract with Mikko Rantanen. They went and traded him. They went and got more draft picks, and they've also got more assets as well because they get Brock Nelson, they get Lindgren, they get Martin Necas. All these guys are going to be healthy. So I am going to take, living here in Denver, I'm being nice, I'm going to take the Avs in 7 against the Stars.
I'm going to go with the Winnipeg Jets and the Colorado Avalanche as well. I just feel like the Avalanche, just like they're going to ride the underdog story a little bit.
They do. And here's the thing. The Avs, unlike the Nuggets, they actually run their franchise very smart. So when you get someone like McFarland there, who's building together that whole roster after what they won in 22, like Colorado wants to go back to the Cup. They're desperate to get back. And especially against Mikko Rantanen. Now, this is the thing, though. They are a very defensive team. And Dallas gave Vegas fits last year in the first round, by the way. It was hard. And but we knew that Pete DeBoer has to prove himself. That's the thing. Defensive-minded coach. You got a very good young roster with Wyatt Johnston, and you've got Jason Robertson next there with Mikko Rantanen. So you cannot afford to screw this up. But I think Colorado's going to get the best of them. After watching their matchups, it's insane. The Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild. Now, the Golden Knights this year, I literally looked at their numbers on one-on-one faceoffs. They clear them in 3 of those games.
The Knights are the new ones, right?
The Knights have been around since 2017.
I thought they were the expansion team. Which one was the new expansion team?
Utah.
Oh. Okay.
Because they relocated. So here's the thing. They are 3-0 against the Minnesota Wild. They have the best goals against average. They have the best power play percentage unit. And they also have a very good penalty kill unit as well. Vegas is getting healthier. Tomas Hertl is healthy. Jack Eichel is going to be at his best. So is Mark Stone. There's a bunch of players that I know are going to be healthy. And the problem with Minnesota is they were without Ryan Hartman and also with Kirill Kaprizov. They're 2 most pivotal offensive guys. But they do have Jonas Brodin. And all you're asking for is Philip Gustafsson to play his absolute best. If he doesn't, Minnesota is going to literally tear up pretty quickly. I'm going to take the Golden Knights with how dominant that they are against the Wild. I'll take them in 5 because the Golden Knights, Aiden Hill, when he's on fire, is probably the best goaltender at least with this Western Conference in the playoffs. He's very, very good. I just don't know how Minnesota's going to figure that out. And finally, the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers. Chase, as much as I love Connor McDavid and I love Leon Draisaitl, the Oilers continue to disappoint the absolute hell out of me. I'm taking the Kings. So here's what's crazy about the Kings stories. So the Kings got a new coach. They got younger on their roster outside of Drew Doughty and Anze Kopitar. Like, Kevin Fiala is the real deal. Alex Turcotte, and so is Quentin Byfield. And by the way, Darcy Kemper, remember that guy in Colorado? He was very good. And the Kings had figured that out. They moved on from Jonathan Quick, but yet they went and figured it out with Darcy Kemper. This team is getting younger, and they're hungry. You know what they remind me of? They remind me of the Indiana Pacers of hockey. They really do. They're young, they're fast, and they can honestly score at will. So I will take them to win in 6 against the Edmonton Oilers. Because I think the Kings, with as red hot as they are, they're unstoppable. So in the Western Conference, so we're going to continue on into the second round of the Western Conference, and then we'll stop there with the Western Conference final. So the second round, I have the Jets against the against the Avs. This is the repeat of last year, where the Colorado Avalanche got the best of the Winnipeg Jets, because that's when the Jets gave up 24 goals that series. It was so bad. I think this is a 7-game series between the Jets and the Avs, because Winnipeg wants to redeem themselves. Connor Hellebuck, Kyle Connor, and even with Mark Scheifele, they've got some very good players. I think, truthfully, like, this is going to be it's going to be cat and mouse at the end of this. But I truthfully think Winnipeg has at least the upper edge against the Colorado Avalanche. I'm going to take them in 7, because they really want to get back at Colorado after that last year performance. That was embarrassing. So I think the Jets make it on, and they go to the Western Conference Final. So, and then round 2, this is a classic matchup. Golden Knights against the Kings. You know, last time that these two faced off in the playoffs, you know what that resulted of? The Kings getting swept. They literally got swept in the first year of the Vegas Golden Knights expansion year. But the funny thing of it is that Vegas was riding this coat that they were the hottest team as an expansion team, because everybody was so brand new and they were the Golden Misfits. But the Kings were kind of old, they were kind of slow, and they really weren't quite gelling as well. I think it's speed versus speed between the Knights and the Kings. I'm going to take this as a 7-game series here, and I'm going to take my hometown team. I really think the Golden Knights will outlast the Kings, because a lot of people, on everyone's bracket I've watched recently, they all have the Kings going to the Western Conference, which, nothing against LA, which they are on fire and they've got the hot hand, but it's the experience of what the Golden Knights have.
Is this a 3 or 4-game series for the first round?
So the first round, it's a 7-game. So all these games are 7 games.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So you would expect some of these guys to get a little tired.
They should have a 3-game for the first round, and then the second round be a 4-game.
Seriously, I wish
just
they would.
Just like baseball, 3-round for the.
I really wish
games
they
for the
would.
third.
In fact, the seeding is so out of proportion too. So I've got the Jets and the Golden Knights in the Western Conference Final, and the last time they faced off was also in the inaugural year in 2017, and the Golden Knights were victorious, I think, in 5 or 6 games against the Jets. This is going to be outrageously difficult for a President's Day trophy or a President's Trophy winner against a team that back in 23 won the Cup. I mean, all the experience in the world, and I'm not a homer. I just know exactly what their identity is. But I'm going to take the Vegas Golden Knights to win here in 6 games against the Winnipeg Jets. People may say I'm crazy and people think I'm a homer, but I've watched this team's identity multiple times. I really have. And I think because of just the experience of it all and how they put themselves together on this, the team wants to go and win another cup. That's why they went and made the moves that they did. And they got a lot more experience than most people think. So I will take them against the Winnipeg Jets and represent in the Stanley Cup final again. Now, the East, we'll start with a battle of Ontario, Canada, and that's the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. I'm going to take the Leafs to win in 6, and the only reason of this is because Ottawa is still young. I would have thought they would have been the team to be interesting to upset the Toronto Maple Leafs, but the Maple Leafs do have some veteran pieces that might outlast the Ottawa Senators. So I'll take the Leafs in 6. Ottawa's young. They're actually building something very, very good from here. So I would not even count this as a season that was a letdown. I really wouldn't. They got back in the playoffs since, I think this is since 2016. Like, this is the last time, because they faced the Penguins in the Eastern Conference Final that year when they went back-to-back. So, the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers, I see this going in 7 because right now Florida's unit is struggling right now. They have not figured it out since Brad Marchand got there, and it's a little weird. But I do think that because of the build, and this is a very good battle of Florida, but I think the Florida Panthers really outlast the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, again, Does this mean John Cooper's seat is heating up? In a sense, kinda, but not drastic. I think he's still a great coach. He's going to be a Hall of Fame coach at some point with the work that he's done with the Tampa Bay Lightning. But I think Florida might outlast here in 7. Washington Capitals against the Montreal Canadiens. I don't know how Montreal even got here because they were fighting between them and the Columbus Blue Jackets. And they lost. And the Montreal got in. But Washington is also a team on fire. So I'm going to take the Capitals to win in 6 against the Canadiens. Logan Thompson, when they went and got him on the trade with the Vegas Golden Knights, Alex Ovechkin, history continuing, and the young unit that they have is actually very fitting for them. So I'll take the Capitals to move on. And then finally, the Carolina Hurricanes against the New Jersey Devils. It's hard for me to really predict this out because Carolina is such a damn good team, but every single time they're in the same boat as well. I don't know what I'm getting with them. I don't know how far they're going to make it through, but I trust them to beat the New Jersey Devils in 6. Carolina's their puck passing capabilities is still so good with Sebastian Aho, and even when you got several other players up front, I still think Carolina has that capability. So in the East, what I have the Toronto Maple Leafs against the Florida Panthers, the Washington Capitals against the Carolina Hurricanes. So here's round 2. So Toronto and Florida, they met with each other before, and Florida got the best of them. So to me, I feel like that the Toronto Maple Leafs, surprisingly, I know I may be nuts for even thinking this, but I think Toronto's going to literally get Florida into a funk. It happens all the time with some of these previous Stanley Cup champions. They will get into like the second round, and then they lose in the second round. I'm going to take Toronto to win in 7. I think they're going to make it to the Eastern Conference. As crazy as this may believe, but Joseph Woll, like, he's a very good goaltender, and I think having to get him toe-to-toe with a very loaded Florida roster, I think it's going to speak a lot of volumes. So Toronto makes it through to the Eastern Conference Final. Carolina and Washington. This is difficult only because Washington and Carolina, they go great head-to-head. They really, really do. But I think Carolina is telling themselves enough is enough. I think Carolina actually beats Washington in 7. Now, Washington's been the team that's on fire, but I think this is still like the kind of moment where they've got the right team in place, but maybe one more year could do it. One more year could definitely do it for the Washington Capitals, but I think Carolina, they win it in 7, and it's going to be Toronto Maple Leafs against the Carolina Hurricanes. And what will shock you, I got the Carolina Hurricanes in 7 to go to the final.
Whoa.
Raleigh, North Carolina needed a moment like this since 2006. Like, ever since they had Cam, there was a Cam Ward then. So if you're already feeling a Cam Ward in Miami Hurricanes, why don't you feel it, the same way you felt about Cam Ward in 2006 with the Carolina Hurricanes? So that might be interesting. Think about it. Cam Ward's number 1, and then Carolina's riding the juice of Cam Ward that they did in the past. I mean, that might be a little interesting, a little sports superstition there for you. So the stage is the Vegas Golden Knights against the Carolina Hurricanes.
Vegas Golden Knights, give it to them all the way.
6. Yep. It's
5.
6 game. Really? I would have been a little bit nice in thinking that they might actually steal like 1 in Vegas, 1 in Raleigh.
That gives them 2, so they get it in 5.
Wow. I don't know. It might be an interesting stretch. It might be interesting, but I'll take them in 6 in this game. Like, so the Vegas Golden Knights, and I know everybody is going to probably bag on me like, dude, you are such a homer. Why do you think the Vegas Golden Knights? It's because a lot of people don't realize when you mix a great coach and you mix veteran presence from there. And especially with the moves that they have made in the last few years, this is always going to be a cup contending team. It really is.
No, I'm actually gonna switch it because I don't know anything about hockey, but I'm gonna go with an underdog pick. I'm gonna go with the Dallas Star and the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup.
Really? Okay. I mean, that's an interesting one. And you know what? John Cooper redeeming himself after. I mean, here's the thing: Nikita Kucherov, like, he's still such a damn good player. Like, he's already. I think he's like second or third in points amongst a lot of forwards. And he's continued to like just be the assist machine. And also, if he's going to take it himself, he's going to do that. So
also, Kadarius Toney retired.
Yeah, I saw that. Well, can he still? I saw that he's pursuing a rap career, but
I'm like, dude, you are really young to be retiring from the NFL. Like, come on.
Yeah, but first of all, think about it. He's got stone hands. Like, do you really?
He's got two rings in those stone hands, so
yeah, right. Yeah. It's not moving me a bit with that. I'm like, okay, go ahead and pursue your rap career. That's fine. If anybody's gonna miss you up on it, I doubt it. They're not really gonna, yeah. I think we're perfectly fine without, watching another tidbit of him just basically dropping the ball.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Interesting. Good show. And like I said, I really liked both of our top 10 draftees. I thought about doing a show tomorrow, but the only problem is we're going to be coming across snow tomorrow. So it's going to be a long, long Friday. However, I will be working on getting my mock drafts and everything ready for a stacked and primed week next week.
Yeah. Yeah, because we got to do at least 2 next week.
Oh, yeah, man. We're going to be busy as all hell with this whole thing. So just prepare yourself, everybody.
My new job next week, so.
Hey, there you go. So we're on the grind now. Like, we're in it. So really, yeah, we're going to be prepared and ready to take this thing head on.
And then we got to do a recap after the first round. So.
Oh no, you know for a fact that we're going to do a recap for sure. But appreciate everybody for joining us on here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Thank you everybody for tuning on in wherever and however you may be watching, guys. Stay tuned for next week with our mock drafts before the NFL draft comes up around, because Chase and I are feeling really good about our mock drafts. So you do not want to end up missing out upon that with Chase and Jake Silva. Myself, take care, you guys, and we'll see you guys next week on the Snake Sports Talk Show. See you later, everyone.